Okay, so if you've seen this quote, in an age of leverage, one correct decision can win everything. Pretty powerful stuff, right?
Yeah, it really makes you think.
And that's exactly what we're going to do today in this deep dive into the Almanack of Naval Ravikant.
Excellent choice.
Yeah, this book, it's absolutely overflowing with thought-provoking ideas and insights.
It is.
On wealth, happiness, and just, deciphering how the world actually works. And we're going to explore all of that today, just for you.
Okay, so the Almanack of Naval Ravikant is it's interesting because it's not like one, linear argument.
Right.
It's more like a collection of thoughts and perspectives from all these different sources, like tweets and essays and interviews.
Yeah, you get all these different angles, like you're peeking into his brain over many years.
Yeah, exactly. It's a really multifaceted view of his thinking.
And we're not just going to skim the surface here.
No way.
We're going to dive deep into the core of these concepts so that you, our listener, will walk away with insights and mental models that you can actually use.
Exactly, practical stuff.
Yeah, we want to give you a clearer lens for understanding both your career and your personal life.
That's the goal.
But, in a way that doesn't overwhelm you.
Yeah, right. No information overload here.
So to zoom out for a second, what Naval is really offering in this book are fundamental principles.
Yeah, like the essential building blocks.
Exactly like the building blocks for a more deliberate and fulfilling life.
Okay, so should we jump right in?
Let's do it.
Okay.
Let's start with a big one, wealth.
A good place to start.
Naval, he defines wealth way beyond just money in the bank.
Okay, yeah.
He says wealth is assets that earn while you sleep.
Interesting.
So it's about building systems, owning things that generate value even when you're not actively working.
So it's not just about working for money, it's about having your money work for you.
Right, that's a crucial distinction.
Absolutely.
And he separates wealth from money, which is just a medium of exchange.
Like a tool.
Right, and also from status, which is all about social hierarchy.
Yeah, where you stand in the pecking order.
But he's really adamant about creating wealth ethically.
Yeah, and staying away from those status games.
He actually says, ignore people playing status games. They gain status by attacking people playing wealth creation games.
He's at a point.
So it's a whole different game, right? And another core insight is this idea that, you're not going to get rich just by renting out your time.
Yeah, trading hours for dollars.
To really achieve financial independence, you need some form of ownership. You need equity.
So that begs the question, where are you right now in terms of how you're earning a living?
Yeah, that's something for you, the listener, to think about. Are you primarily trading your time for money?
Because Naval really challenges us to think outside the box about how to transition into owning assets or pieces of businesses.
And, he emphasizes finding what society wants, but doesn't know how to get yet.
Ah, interesting. Like a need that's not being met.
Exactly. And then figuring out how to provide that at scale.
So like companies that didn't just do things better, but created something entirely new.
Okay, so let's say you have an idea for creating value. How do you amplify your efforts?
Leverage.
Leverage, exactly. This is where things get really interesting.
Okay, tell me more.
Naval talks about 3 kinds of leverage: capital labor and what he calls permissionless leverage.
Permissionless leverage, what's that?
It's basically code in media.
Ah, okay.
And this is a huge shift, historically, to scale your impact. You needed a lot of money or a lot of people.
Right, you needed investors or employees.
But with code and media, you can create something once, and it can be replicated and distributed like crazy without needing anyone's permission.
So like software, ebooks, podcasts, things like that?
Exactly. The reach is incredible, and he makes this crucial point that leverage is a force multiplier for your judgment.
That makes sense. The better your judgment, the bigger the impact of your leverage.
But that means it can also magnify bad judgment too, right?
Oh yeah, for sure.
So this really underscores how important it is to cultivate solid decision-making skills.
Absolutely. Wielding leverage without good judgment can be dangerous.
So how do we develop that good judgment?
Well, Naval points to certain foundational areas of knowledge that contribute to good judgment.
Like what?
Things like understanding microeconomics, which is how markets and incentives work. Game theory, which helps you think strategically about interactions.
Interesting.
Psychology, understanding human behavior and biases. Persuasion, ethics, math, and computers.
Wow, that's a lot.
Yeah, but these aren't just academic subjects. They're practical tools for navigating the real world.
Okay, so we're not talking about abstract theories here.
No, this is about understanding how things actually work.
He even suggests setting an aspirational personal hourly rate.
What does that mean?
It's basically deciding how much your time is worth and then using that as a benchmark. So if a task will save you less than your aspirational rate, it might be better to just ignore it.
Okay.
And if you can outsource something for less than that rate, it frees up your time for higher impact activities.
So it's about being strategic with your time.
Exactly.
Okay, so that's a good question for our listeners. How are you valuing your time right now?
Are you spending too much time on things that could be delegated or even automated?
Yeah, are you focusing on the things that will actually move the needle?
Okay, so we've talked about leverage and judgment, but where does that judgment come from?
Good question.
Naval dives into this idea of specific knowledge.
And this is where his perspective really shines.
So specific knowledge isn't something you learn in school or in a typical training program.
It's more like something you discover by following your curiosity and your passions.
Yeah, it's those things you naturally gravitated towards as a kid or a teenager.
The things that felt more like play than work.
But other people might have seen them as special skills or talents.
Exactly. He gives examples like being good at sales or understanding music deeply or having a really obsessive focus.
He famously says, building specific knowledge will feel like play to you, but will look like work to others.
I love that quote.
It's so true. It's about tapping into what you're naturally drawn to.
And this specific knowledge, you learn it through experience apprenticeships by doing it, not just reading about it.
And so it's not something you can just download from textbook.
Exactly. It's earned through real world experience.
And here's the key, specific knowledge is your competitive advantage.
It's what makes you stand out. It's what makes you valuable.
Naval also links it to authenticity. He says, escape competition through authenticity.
So when you're being yourself and offering something that's truly unique to you, competition becomes irrelevant.
Right. He uses examples like Joe Rogan and Scott Adams. Their work is so tied to who they are that you can't really copy them.
So you're saying find your own path, don't try to be someone else.
Exactly.
Okay, so this all sounds great, but it's not like a get-rich-quick scheme, right?
Definitely not. This is about long-term gains and compound interest.
Ah, compound interest, like with money.
But he applies it to relationships and knowledge, too.
Oh, interesting. Tell me more about that.
He often talks about Elad Gil, a fellow investor who's known for building strong relationships over time.
So consistently treating people well.
Exactly. And that creates trust and opens up opportunities for everyone involved.
Because it's like a win-win situation.
Right. He really emphasizes playing long-term games with long-term people,
Building those genuine connections.
as opposed to those short-sighted zero-sum games where someone always loses.
Yeah, where one person's gain is another person's loss.
So here's a question for you. Are you focusing on building those long-term relationships?
Or are you getting caught up in those transactional interactions?
Okay, now another crucial piece of the puzzle, accountability.
Accountability.
Naval is a big advocate for embracing accountability and taking risks, but putting your name on the line.
So not hiding behind a corporation or something.
Right. And his point is that society rewards accountability with responsibility, equity, and leverage.
So when you're willing to stand by your decisions, you build trust and open up doors.
And he acknowledges the fear of failure that comes with that.
Yeah, putting yourself out there can be scary.
But he also points out that in today's world, the downside is often not as bad as we think, especially if you operate with integrity.
Yeah, and you learn from your mistakes.
He actually shares a personal example about how he started sharing his thoughts on philosophy and psychology.
Which must have felt pretty vulnerable.
But it ended up being incredibly rewarding.
So sometimes taking that leap of faith can lead to amazing things.
Exactly. And accountability is really about ownership, taking ownership of your outcomes, both good and bad.
And using those experiences to grow.
Yeah, that's a hallmark of successful people.
So we've talked about knowledge, leverage, accountability. It all feeds into what might be the most underrated skill-building judgment.
Judgment, okay.
Naval defines judgment as wisdom applied to external problems, and wisdom is understanding the long-term consequences of actions.
Okay, that makes sense.
And he argues that in an age of leverage, good judgment is more valuable than just hard work.
Because if you're leveraging your efforts in the wrong direction, it doesn't matter how hard you work.
Exactly picking the right path is crucial.
He talks about how to think clearly. He emphasizes understanding the basics, being honest with yourself, and letting go of preconceived notions.
So not clinging to beliefs that might be holding you back.
Right. He often quotes Feynman's idea that if you can't explain something simply, you don't really understand it.
So true. Are you striving to understand the fundamental principles in your field, or are you getting lost in the details?
Naval also says that suffering can be a moment of truth.
Meaning?
It forces us to confront reality and adjust our perspectives.
When things get tough, you have to face facts.
And he emphasizes the need for empty space in our schedules, time for reflection to allow for deep thinking.
So not just constantly busy, but making time to think.
Exactly, and to help us think more clearly and make better decisions, he advocates for building a collection of mental models.
Mental models, what are those?
They're like frameworks or principles from different disciplines
Yeah.
that help us predict outcomes and make decisions.
So like tools for thinking.
Right. He says the most valuable mental models come from fields like evolutionary biology, game theory, and thinkers like Charlie Munger and Nassim Taleb.
Wow, a wide range of sources.
He talks about inversion, which is thinking about what you want to avoid,
Instead of just what you want to achieve,
and complexity theory, which reminds us that we can't predict everything,
especially in complex systems.
and the principal agent problem, which is about understanding situations where people have different incentives.
So like when your interests might not be aligned with someone else's.
He also has this great heuristic. If you can't decide, the answer is no.
I like that, especially for big life decisions.
And his main recommendation for building mental models is reading widely in science, math, and philosophy.
So exposing yourself to different ways of thinking.
Exactly. Mental models give us a toolkit for navigating complexity and making better decisions.
They help us see patterns and avoid common mistakes.
Okay, let's shift gears a bit and talk about learning happiness.
Learning happiness.
Yeah. Naval argues that happiness isn't something you find out there in the world. It's something you learn and cultivate within yourself.
So it's not about circumstances, it's about your internal state.
Exactly. And the good news is our minds are malleable. We can train ourselves to be happier. He talks about the importance of presence and inner peace and how our desires can actually lead to unhappiness.
So wanting things can make us unhappy.
He says we shouldn't fall for the trap of thinking that achieving external goals will automatically make us happy.
Because often it doesn't.
And our daily habits play a big role in our happiness. Things like avoiding excessive alcohol and limiting social media can have a huge impact.
Yeah, those are good things to be mindful of.
He also mentions the 5 chimps theory, which is the idea that we are heavily influenced by the people we spend the most time with.
So choose your company wisely.
And finally, he talks about the importance of radical acceptance for finding inner peace.
So accepting what is.
So here's a question for you. Are you cultivating habits and relationships that contribute to your happiness?
Or are you surrounding yourself with negativity and engaging in activities that drain you?
Okay, now let's talk about saving yourself.
Saving yourself.
Naval emphasizes the importance of taking personal responsibility for our well-being, physical health, intellectual growth, emotional happiness, financial stability.
So it's all on us.
In a way, yes, no one else can do this work for you.
Doctors, teachers, they can guide us, but we have to take the reins.
He's a big proponent of choosing to be yourself and listening to your inner voice.
Tuning out the noise of the world.
He also talks about the challenges of our modern environment with its abundance and constant stimulation.
Yeah, it can be overwhelming.
And he has this great saying, easy choices, hard life. Hard choices, easy life.
Meaning?
Making those tough decisions up front can lead to a more fulfilling life down the road.
I see.
And he describes meditation as intermittent fasting for the mind.
Interesting analogy.
He says it helps us achieve clarity, quiet, the mental chatter, and manage the monkey mind.
So it's like giving our minds a break.
So saving yourself is about taking control of your life and making choices that align with your long-term well-being.
Okay, so what about the future? What about growth?
Naval talks about choosing to grow and free yourself.
Okay, tell me about that.
He suggests focusing on building systems for continuous improvement rather than obsessing over specific goals.
So creating a framework for ongoing progress.
Exactly, and he's a big advocate for continuous learning and reading widely.
Always be learning.
And he talks about a shift from freedom to, which is about external achievements, to freedom from, which is about internal liberation.
Interesting distinction.
So freedom from limiting expectations, anger, uncontrolled thoughts.
So a deeper kind of freedom.
Exactly. And finally, the big question, the meaning of life.
Ah, yes, the ultimate question.
Naval offers 3 perspectives.
Okay, what are they?
First, he acknowledges that the search for meaning is personal.
We each have to find our own answers.
And he presents the philosophical idea that there might not be any inherent meaning to life.
It's up to us to create it.
And from a scientific perspective, he touches on concepts like entropy and our place in the cosmos.
So taking a broader view.
Ultimately, he encourages you, the listener, to grapple with these ideas and find your own understanding.
It's a journey of exploration.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into Naval's thinking, let's highlight a few key takeaways for you. The learner.
Okay, takeaways.
First, remember the power of leverage, especially permissionless leverage, to amplify your impact.
Use those tools wisely.
Second, prioritize building specific knowledge by following your curiosity and passions.
That's your unique advantage.
And third, happiness is an inside job. It's a choice and a skill you can develop.
So take ownership of your happiness.
Here's a thought to ponder. Are you focusing too much on external validation or chasing those short-term wins?
Or are you building those long-term assets that will compound over time?
We encourage you to explore the Almanack of Naval Ravikant further
Yeah, it's a great read.
and think about which long-term games you're playing in your own life.
Are they aligned with your values and aspirations?
And here's one last thought to leave you with. Maybe true wealth isn't just about assets that earn while you sleep,
Okay, go on.
but also about cultivating a mind that is at peace while you're awake. Food for thought, right?
Absolutely.
Until next time.